Hello everyone, this is Fiona Apollo and I do art commentary. Today, I wanted to come back around to the discussion of indie animation. Ever since the amazing digital Circus came out on the 13th of October, there has been an explosion of interest in the indie scene compared to what we saw a few months ago when Lackadaisy released their pilot episode. And personally, I couldn't be happier that people are excited for this boundless area of animation. In just a single month, the amazing digital Circus has garnered 100 million views on YouTube, which is just, honestly, it's kind of inconceivable. And as of writing this, it's gotten to over 150 million, which is insane. I don't think I have to tell you what a crazy number that is, and what it shows us is that compared to the current IP revival doomscape of mainstream animation, people do want new stories, new shows, new passion projects, and they are absolutely worth investing time, money, and interest into. But in that same breath, when we look at indie animation as an entity, I do have some concerns about where things are headed, and Digital Circus's success has put those concerns at the forefront of my mind lately. I'm not upset that it's doing well, far from it actually, but my main worry is the aftermath of this success and how people are going to view indie animation and what they will come to expect from it as a result. Indie animation covers an extremely broad scope. The sheer variety of projects being worked on, how many people work on them, and how exactly they are tended to be presented can be anything from a small pet project by one or two people, all the way up to a crowd-funded animated series by a registered studio. The one thing that tends to be a constant, however, and what also contributes to confusion among viewers as to exactly how much work is involved, is that most indie animated productions are expected to be widely accessible by as many people as possible, which usually means that almost everything is posted online for free. And just like many other mediums, such as webcomics for example, this accessibility can hinder an audience's ability to fully appreciate how much work goes into managing to push out a final product. What also tends to be a struggle for people working on these projects as well is the underlying fandom culture that can take over once a show becomes popular. Digital Circus is no different, and we'll be doing a brief dive into what's happening there alongside our main topic today. I'll be upfront. My view around the development of indie animation is concerned with managing expectations for everyone involved: viewers, appreciators, creators, and the like. So to help with that, I wanted to look a little bit into how the studio behind Digital Circus got to where they are, and I also went ahead and asked a couple of other indie creators some questions around their own works and what they themselves hope for indie animation as a whole. I'm hoping that doing this will help paint a picture of the circumstances that lead up to a successful indie production, as well as a few things to look out for. So if you like the sound of all that, please stick around and don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. As you can probably tell, I'm a huge fan of animation in general, but I also talk about general art topics, pop culture, and other things that pique my interest too. Are there any indie projects you're looking forward to? Working on any yourself? If so, please leave a comment and let me and everyone else know. We'd love to hear from you. Let's begin. Part 1. A timeline of success. So, to start things off, I wanted to have a look into what led up to Digital Circus being such a huge success, and this included looking into the origins of the people who contributed to its creation. So we're going to go back to the beginning and take a look at the origins of Glitch Productions. For those who don't know, GlitchX, also known as Glitch Productions / Glitchy Boy Productions, are a Sydney-based animation company developed in that sweet spot of YouTube in the early 2010s. Originating as a series of Mario blooper-style short animations on co-founder Luke Ludwigigal, aka SMG4's YouTube channel in 2011 when he was 13, like many of YouTube's early successes, it was more of a fun hobby than anything committed to a career move. But then around 2016, his older brother Kevin, after seeing the audience it was amassing, saw potential in cultivating the channel into a business and officially joined as a writer and producer in 2017, whereas Luke took more of a creative directional role in addition to voice acting several key characters. In Kevin's own words, "I was doing a double degree in computer science and engineering, and I finished it and looked at what Luke was doing. He's literally just working in his own room, and I was like, what are you doing? I'm making YouTube videos." I sat down, saw his audience, saw everything he had, and was like, okay, there's a lot of potential in this. Now, I will just say that with that, while I'm all for people seeing the potential in taking something like YouTube from a hobby into something that could in fact financially support you, I do also just want to instill a bit of realism here. It's a very, very small percentage of channels, as far as I've seen, who actually manage to make them into something that can do so full time. And even then, it's not guaranteed to stay that way, and audiences can be fickle. While I do fully support people trying to see how far they can go with their endeavors, please don't sacrifice your day jobs unless you have other means of support in place as well. If you are going to take that leap, at least make sure you have a backup plan in case it doesn't work out. Moving on, Glitch Productions as a company has its official beginnings in late 2017 and announced in 2018 via their own SMG4 Direct, taking inspiration from Nintendo Directs, the development of several titles under their belts, such as the live-action series Hitbox, produced by the Ludwichagel brothers, but most notably in this time also led to the trailer for their newest series Meta Runners, which received funding from Screen Australia, which is the Australian federal government's key funding body for the Australian screen production industry. This coincidentally brings us around to the creation of Murder Drones. Until The Amazing Digital Circus, Murder Drones was Glitch Productions' most recognisable work, as well as their first venture outside of the SMG4 linked works, and a series not created by the Ludwichagel brothers, and its first independently owned IP. Created by Liam Vickers, Murder Drones is arguably the blueprint for Glitch Productions' work, storytelling with a dark, comedic edge, with a touch of futuristic elements. The series also received funding from Screen Australia, and the pilot premiered on the Glitch channel on October 29, 2021, and currently has 6 episodes with 2 more on the way. Arguably, Murder Drones was their attempt into focusing more on their own studio's goals to showcase independent animation for showrunners not picked up by mainstream studios, or facing constant threats of cancellation. In Kevin's own words at the time that Murder Drones had just been released, they were focusing purely on the indie side of things. We aim to showcase talent that doesn't have to go through a big studio filter and deliver content that no one else can make right now. Liam Vickers also commented that the production of Murder Drones falls in line with that philosophy, love letter to the horror genre, plus carry through all those spooky ideas that maybe wouldn't make it through the mainstream service. So now we arrive at The Amazing Digital Circus, currently the golden goose of Glitch production potential. Originally one of 3 pitches sent to the series, the pilot was greenlit and posted to the Glitch channel on the 13th of October 2023. Creator Cooper Smith Goodwin, aka Gooseworks, became inspired by the short story I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream, a short story from 1967 by Harlan Ellison, though changed the AI character Kane as a fun-loving wacky little guy instead of a living embodiment of hate. Digital Circus aligned well with the brand and common theme of the channel, hopping on to millennial nostalgia, specifically in the retro late 90s, early 2000s video game aesthetic. The designs definitely evoke that trend of nostalgia Glitch Productions aims for. A full series has not yet been greenlit, though Glitch general manager and development producer Jasmine Yang has stated that if they do go forth with future episodes, they want to retain full creative control over their brand. We've seen in the trends from streaming services, particularly towards animation. I don't need to go into details about the recent wave of cancellations or the general disrespect towards animation from the mainstream, but we believe that YouTube is the best way forward. Following this though, there is always the odd controversy that follows people who are suddenly skyrocketed into the public eye, especially when regarding indie creations, since they don't have, say, the backing of a PR team, and Gooseworks is no exception. I'm not going to delve extremely deep into this because as far as I've read on the Gooseworks drama, it's a situation that can befall many indie creators, but so long as you take a moment to assess and react professionally, there's very little chance of it having any long-term negative effects. It's just a bit of a shitty thing that tends to happen. To summarise, a live stream hosted by Glitch Productions in November had its live chat raided by trolls, including Twitter replies that had doxed Gooseworks, VivziePop, and other creators. Gooseworks was a focal point after users seemingly originating from 4chan went on a moral crusade after unearthing old joke tweets suggesting a drilling fetish, whatever that is, and finding a locked private account of Gooseworks pertaining to Rule 34. And I just want to say that this in itself is hilarious because really, 4chan trying to act like the morality police? Please. Also, there are many creators, even high-profile ones who work in places like Disney and DreamWorks and all of that, who have separate accounts dedicated to not safe for work drawings. As long as they are not allowing it to be easily accessible to minors and are not drawing anything illegal, this is a literal non-issue and a very clear attempt to try and take someone down who's doing well, either out of boredom or jealousy or some other stupid reason by losers on the internet with nothing better to do with their time. There was also a situation on Reddit alongside this where an image of the Amazing Digital Circus's main character Pomni's face was shared around, and when users clicked on it, it expanded to show Gooseworks' information. The thing that bugs me about this particular drama is that it is the same situation as other creators have experienced in the past, with very little difference. A creation of theirs takes off, people start to notice them, then a select few people decide to do a background check of sorts, and when they find something to latch onto, they try to spin it as a moral failing to side with or show any kind of intrigue in the creator in question. This has become much more of an issue now and brings me retweet to an article written regarding the increased sense of puritanism in media consumption. The desire to exclusively engage with media and art made by unproblematic artists is a direct result of Americans viewing media consumption as an inherently political act because that is the supreme promise of Western prosperity and the religion of consumerism, and because it's seemingly all that's left. We've been stripped and socialized out of any real political energy and agency. Our ability to consume is the only thing remaining that's ours in late-stage capitalism, and as a result, that's become a stand-in for, or perhaps the sole defining quality of, every aspect of being alive today. Consuming is activism, it's love, it's thinking, it's sex, it's fill in the blank. When the act of consuming is all you have left, and indeed the only thing society tells you is valuable and meaningful, the act must necessarily be a moral one, which is why people send themselves down manic spirals deciding what or who is problematic or not, because for us the stakes are that high now. But despite that, what we can see here is that creations such as Murder Drones and Digital Circus came from the realization that, hey, YouTube and independent creations might be the way forward. And combined with other creations spearheading this movement, including Hell of a Boss, Lackadaisy, Hullabaloo, which by the way aired its pilot after so many years finally, please go watch it, it is beautiful, I will link it below, and many others, we see that the indie scene is picking up the pace every single year, and more indie productions are being announced and released for the same reason. And honestly, it's pretty great to see. Part 2, From the Grapevine. As always, I love to hear people's thoughts on these kinds of topics, and so I went ahead and put up a few posts asking people what their thoughts might be on indie animation currently and how they think it will develop. And I think it's safe to say that there are a lot of good vibes surrounding the field at the moment. People are sick of IP hell when it comes to mainstream animation and want something different. Everything coming out of the corporation giants at the moment feels stale and sanitized, with very few exceptions, particularly when it comes to film. People want boundaries to be pushed, they want things to be flourishing, and they want things to not be constricted by the will of people who don't even watch the things they're funding half the time. And especially given all of the talks around strike action, people want to know that the teams who are actually working on these productions get to see their passion projects succeed, and directly reap the rewards from them. I know that's what I want, at least. I don't even care if that means sacrificing quality or waiting a bit longer, because it's growing more and more obvious by the day that the current system of churning out high quality works and pushing creatives to breaking point isn't sustainable. And that's likely part of the reason why indie animation has such a broad appeal at the moment. But that said, as I mentioned in the beginning about managing expectations, when looking at how Glitch Productions got off the ground, they did so by having a pre-existing backing in the form of Luke's audience, as well as funding from Screen Australia for multiple projects. And when we compare that to what other indie creators are currently trying to accomplish, it becomes clear that the playing field on that front is far from even. But it doesn't necessarily have to be for these other projects to succeed or be worth doing. I have noticed lately that audiences are latching on to the hugely successful hits within the indie scene, and as a result, indie animation appears to be perceived by some as basically mainstream animation, but with less censorship and with no subscription fees. And that has caused a slight bit of friction between certain projects who are being told by audiences that they aren't as good as, or have to match these, well, essentially these giants within the field, and that's simply not true. That's kind of my main worry with all of this, but I don't want to just home in on that one potential negative. So I decided to send out a couple of questions to a few people involved in the indie scene in order to allow them the opportunity to introduce their works and speak their piece on happenings within indie animation. In no particular order, I reached out to Evan on Lumi and the Great Big Galaxy, Sam Wilkinson from the Obsidian Archives, Eddie Mead from Circus of Wishes, Naya from Defenders of Alodia, the Indie Animation Network, and Studio Flimpo. Please note that this is going to be quite a beefy section, so as the questions go on and the answers get lengthier, I may have to cut certain ones out in favour of keeping on track, but I will be providing a Google document of all the questions and answers from each person that will be included in the video description. I'm Evan, and I'm the creator of Lumi and the Great Big Galaxy, about 6 aliens travelling the galaxy to help a lost star return home, and stop an evil deity from destroying it. The Obsidian Archives is a fantasy epic of a she-demon named Zeria who longs for a cozy life as a princess. Along the way, she teams up with a cunning noble with exorbitant dreams of grandeur and villainy. It is loaded with medieval intrigue and a dark yet hopeful atmosphere. My name is Eddie Mead, and I am the creator, director, and storyboard artist of Circus of Wishes. Circus of Wishes is an indie 2D animated film that is about a young girl named Sadie, who stumbles across a magical circus with a mysterious ringmaster that promises her the spotlight she craves. she starts to uncover the dark secrets of the circus and realizes that maybe things aren't all they seem. Circus is a love letter to 90s Disney villain songs, Broadway musicals, and spooky kids films like Coraline. It'll be around 40 minutes long and will feature 4 original music numbers. Hi, I'm Naya and this is my show, Defenders of Alodia. It's an action-adventure cartoon with a lot of heart and blasting stuff. Basically, we post and bring awareness on what's going on in indie animation, whether it be a new achievement, a crowdfunding campaign, a new project, basically anything that's new to the indie animation scene or something that someone wants us to post for them. Hi, my name is Milo Ferguson, my pronouns are they them, and I'm one of the 3 co-founders of Studio Flimpo, an indie artist-owned animation studio in the greater NYC area. The other 2 co-founders are Reed Sandlund and Ren Abweg. We all met while attending SVA and formed the studio shortly after graduation. So one thing I was interested in looking into was the varying scales of the projects being worked on within the indie scene. Despite how popular series like Hell of a Boss and Murder Drones are, those are the productions that have pre-existing support behind them in terms of both audience and funding, and as such, they are in fact outliers. The majority of indie creations are doing all of this from the ground up, so it's all the more impressive that they are managing to do as much as they are, but it's also imperative to their development that this support is maintained. We have a relatively small team of about 50 people. We crowdfunded once before and plan to do so again. I don't think it's as huge as any other production teams out there though. The production scale is more a web of very small teams creating various shorts and components for larger episodes to flesh out the tapestry of the world and relationships of the characters. Currently, to keep the budget friendly, we work in an animatic format. Right now, Circus of Wishes is in pre-production, which means we'll be focusing on storyboarding for a while. I have a fairly small team at this time, 3 concept artists, 2 storyboarders, 5 animators, and a voice acting cast. But that is mostly due to budget restrictions. Everything that has been done for Circus of Wishes has come out of my own pocket. We will be crowdfunding sometime in 2024, which will allow the team to grow much faster. Our team is sizable and we're working towards a crowdfund, but we're all working at our own pace. The types of projects that I see are anything really. The teams are usually made by one person or a group of people, mainly animation studios that are crowdfunding. It's just the 3 of us at the moment, and our current gigs are short term, so our productions are on the smaller side now. 1 sub 30-second social media animation per week or so. We have larger productions in the works, both internally and with other clients, but they are currently under NDA. We do plan on hiring out freelancers for those larger productions, but we can't yet afford to pay our employees a fair wage, and that is not something we are willing to compromise on. I think what also intrigued me when speaking to people is what they themselves deem as the average scale. And I suppose that depends on what exactly you're trying to do and whether you have experience in things like animation and putting a team together for this kind of thing already. A good chunk of people working on indie projects are also probably people who may have worked in mainstream animation previously, hence why they feel confident in pursuing it and why certain projects may seem more, quote, professional than something created by hobbyists. But that's not to discredit or pit such works against each other. It's what adds to the sheer variety of what's out there, and is also part of indie animation's appeal in my opinion. And that appeal has been spurred on in no small part by the big players in the indie scene, and pretty much everyone I spoke to mentioned that they've seen a rise in recognition for what indie animation is and how many people are willing to look further into it and appreciate it. I think that more eyes on indie animation has been a positive thing. I have been working in indie animation since 2020 on things like Hell of a Boss, and seeing these powerhouses of indie studios get so much attention has been very encouraging for my own project. Not everyone's pilot or film could go viral or gather a following, or even break even financially. But I feel like people know what indie animation is now. If I said I was working on an indie animated project, people wouldn't have understood what that meant. But now I can say that and people will say, oh, like Hell of a Boss, Lackadaisy, Digital Circus. It's been very encouraging to see this boom of support and indie being pushed more into the public eye. And I think it's helped people understand my own project better. Yes, I feel like we did see some success this year. The amazing Digital Circus gained 100 million views in a month alone from its release, along with other projects like Swift Spark and Set Sail for Candy gaining view recognition too. Studio Heartbreak surpassed their goal on Kickstarter too, along with No XP, and Celadus, and now Captain Zero too. So yes, I do feel like it did benefit these productions in a way, because now more people are starting to be interested and they are being recognized. Absolutely. We formatted our studio's online presence because we knew there was a gap in the niche. Indie animation is getting popular, but very few studios go into the behind the scenes, likely because most studios are fully remote and don't have much of a physical space anyways. It also helps audiences gain an appreciation of the true time and effort it takes to make animation, all while growing an audience that appreciates both our creations and who we are as creators. We hope to harbour an audience that not only wants to support our endeavours, but the endeavours of independent animation as a whole. But even with all of this, there are still some concerns to account for. One issue, I think, is that regular people won't actually see that big of a distinction between mainstream and indie animation, which will result in a similar issue that developed in the webcomics community, particularly on Webtoon, where hobbyists are getting lumped in with people who had actual contracts to release their stories on the platform, and demands for both are more or less the same, leading to a bunch of knock-on effects such as unrealistic standards, burnout, and so on. We've seen this issue happen in the animation industry itself already, and it's the reason some people are shifting over to indie projects. But that in itself isn't necessarily going to fix the problem, I don't think. It's just hopping from one community to another and crippling them before moving on to the next. I personally think that one of the big problems is that people are so bombarded lately with so much choice and are used to receiving instant gratification, such as with an entire season drop of a new series and being able to binge it all at once, then immediately darting to the next thing to watch, that they are leaving practically no room to actually digest what they're consuming, and as such, this is causing issues such as lack of patience, and perhaps more sinister, a drop in media literacy, since shows are having to cram in so much context as they can in the first season, often before getting cancelled, and as a result, people are getting irritated if things are left open-ended or not explained immediately. This of course isn't the fault of the actual productions, hence the reason indie animation seems like a good solution, but those knock-on effects will carry over regardless unless we are able to somehow mitigate them. I think indie animation being much more direct as to what a production entails and showing audiences that they have to wait for things will be a good thing, but it's not without its teething issues, since some people will be so used to not having to do that by now and will demand a project to be wrapped up as soon as possible anyway. It's a bit like enjoying a meal. Yeah, you could wolf it down all in 2 seconds and give yourself heartburn, or you could take your time and truly savour it. There's many things I could list as concerns, raised expectations being one of them, but I think what mostly concerns me is the inexperience. It's not easy to jump into making your own animated production, and I hope that while we don't want to crush anyone's dreams, we could be a little more realistic about what goes into it. I think definitely viewer expectations and funds. It's really hard to get funded when it comes to indie animation, so I hope we can find a more concrete and solidified way to produce said funds. As for viewer expectations, I feel like they need to understand that indie just isn't on the same scale as a full-blown industry production. Once they understand that, hopefully expectations will be more in check. Though a rising tide raises all ships, a vigilant mind of understanding and space for personal growth is the key to allow everyone to have their shot to make it big in the indie scene. Gatekeeping is a problem that is too slowly being tackled. I think my question about potential concerns was the one with the most variation in responses. There are admittedly a lot of concerns that spring up when something becomes popular, whether it's a single product or an entire community. Everything from funding, audience expectations, competitiveness between production teams, gatekeeping, inexperience, and many other things come into play here. And maybe on their own per project they can be managed, but on a collective scale there are things that can take a lot of work to maneuver around. But with those concerns, there also comes the hope that emerges when thinking about what the community could look like. What could the indie scene potentially look like if it continues on this trajectory? What can we dare to hope for, whether it be realistic or ideal? It may not necessarily negate the concerns that are being raised, but those issues also don't have to define it. I'd love for a way for us to secure funding that doesn't rely on us having to crowdfund all the time. I also hope to see more projects with a smaller scale, like a short, with limited animation. There's lots you can do, and not all of it needs to be extravagant or huge. Sometimes something small is enough. My deepest hope is that indie animation doesn't stop at just getting through the door, but also allows innovations in genre diversity for a broader range of entertainment palettes. One may say there are a lot of adult animations, but how many can say there are many mature animations? I hope for more positivity and celebration of creativity. The majority of the community has been so encouraging and supportive of each other, and the audience has been as well. I just really hope that we can keep this indie boom centered as a celebration of people's hard work. In general, I hope for indie animation to continue to grow and thrive. I have high hopes for the future. Honestly, for more government funding, anything to help indie animation financially and to help indie animated projects get the money that they deserve. I would love for us to start a dedicated fund for indie animated projects one day, or a new website or service solely for that purpose. We want the indie animation space to be a more financially viable path in the industry, not just for us, but for everyone. We want to leverage our community to support smaller projects, other than just ours, and embrace the weirdness of the indie scene in all of its glory. Animation is a limitless medium that has been held back by executives for far too long, and I hope that era is behind us now. Sometimes just being able to create something and post it online is enough. It doesn't have to be a fully animated series or movie or funded through a Kickstarter. And like we've seen with the big productions so far, they don't have to conform to what is considered appropriate or what will appeal to the most people possible. And that's really what makes this medium so exciting, I think. But for the majority, the biggest obstacle is money to make something exactly how they envision it, and this is the sentiment that many indie productions share, and why things like crowdfunding is so important for a community like this. It's interesting going through all of these responses and seeing that while some things differ, such as perceptions of scale or potential issues, and how these answers come about by nature of what the productions themselves entail, it's also quite nice to see that some things are the same across the board. All of these people and so many others want to see their creations succeed, and this truly is such an exciting, if not tentative time for it to happen. I guess we'll just have to wait and see, I suppose. Part 3. The Strive to Create. It's been really fulfilling to see that despite what's happening in the mainstream with cancellations and limited original works, people's appreciation and love for animation has been redirected towards the heart of the craft. Passionate groups of people who have a creative vision and aren't just creating them to fill a quota or anything like that. They're making these creations because they love them and want to see them in the world. Yeah, some people may go into it with the ambition of their project reaching certain heights and amassing a following, but I don't personally think that's the worst thing in the world. It is kind of human nature to want to show people the thing you made. I think it shows a clear love to make connections with those who share their love of art, storytelling, and imagination. And I think if there's a way for a community to flourish that allows such a thing to be that bit more accessible, then it's only natural to put some support behind it. For my final comments, I will say, be adventurous and true to your roots. If it can work in live action, it can work in animation. Lift up your colleagues and make a darn good product. It's so encouraging and motivating to see so much attention on indie animation lately. I can't wait to see more of the incredible creative projects out there, and I hope that things like the amazing digital circus can inspire a whole new wave of young creators to make their own projects. I think as a community, we are definitely learning from mistakes and growing up, but to see it happen so organically and quickly is fascinating. The future is bright. Overall, we hope for indie animation to strive high for success and get the attention they deserve the most. I love the fact that indie animation is thriving right now and people are starting to get interested in these amazing projects, especially with the way the industry is constantly treating animation so poorly right now. There's still so many stories to be told, and we are always looking to see what's coming or popping out next. If any young artist is thinking of starting a similar project, whether it's getting your friends together for a small studio or just your own personal projects, do it. Just try. Even if you give it your best shot and don't finish it, you will be ahead of thousands, and you will more than likely find your people who will help bring your voice to an audience. You are not a content creator, you are an artist. Act like it and be yourself, and be loud forever. Stretch your wrists, stand every 20 minutes, take walks with friends. You will never stop being an artist. So embrace it, and take care of yourself, and don't do drugs. And I think that's all from me. Thank you all so much for watching, and thank you kindly to Evan, Sam, Eddie, Naya, Indie Animation Network, and Milo & Co. at Studio Flimpo for answering my questions. I'll be providing links to their socials below so that you can look more into what they do. I have a lot of hope for what is happening in this space, but again, I hope that people can temper their expectations and share the same kind of enthusiasm for other projects as they have done for Digital Circus and others. But what do you think? What do you think of today's video? Any buzzing thoughts, questions, discussions? Please let me know in the comments. Stay safe, everyone, and I will speak to you very soon. Bye!